Oh, Manchester, so much to answer for. No, we won't go there. No, not now. Not today. No, this is a short film about a Grade 2 listed public house called the Star Garter. Built in 1877, this place is tucked away behind Piccadilly railway station. A dingy and dubious place for most, but over the past 20 years, it's attracted an eclectic and somewhat youthful crowd, seeking something more alternative to the usual pubs and music venues in the city centre. Manchester city centre is growing, and part of its new growth is the Northern Hub developments. This is mostly the redevelopment of old railway land on the periphery of the city centre. Part of the Northern Hub is the disused Mayfield railway station and surrounding area, of which the pub is part. The Mayfield developments are reported to be worth over £550 million, but London and Continental, who are selling the former British Rail land, are waiting for approval from the Transport Secretary, Patrick McLaughlin, thanks to a planning review heard last year. Unfortunately, no one from Manchester City Council, Network Rail or London and Continental were willing to appear in this film. Buildings have no defined use, and they often have fluid identities, changing over time. Those popping in to the Star Garter for a pint in 1877 may be surprised by the music being played and the dress sense of the clientele frequenting it now. However, they would have recognised the building and perhaps the attitude there. I spoke to those at the Star Garter whose lives will be most affected by the changes.
Can't recall stuff offhand, like, ad hoc and stuff like that. It's difficult.
So you came here in 81 as a punter then?
Yes, I did, yes. It was a totally different pub to what it is now. The arch wasn't there. And there's a fruit machine against the wall. There's just a small door into there. And there was a piano at the end where the fireplace is. And a lovely old guy called Carl used to play it at dinner times. Really, really changed.
I asked about when you started to come here as a punter.
Yeah.
But you've been working here as well, haven't you? Sort of.
Yes.
You're sort of barman. You're multitasking.
Multitasking, yeah. That's a good description of what I do. Yeah.
So what is it? What is it you do then altogether?
Basically, work with Andy at the door. But anything wants repairing, fixing, anything like that, I'm right on it.
Smile birthday parties when Smile birthday when you could go upstairs to a Smile birthday party and walk in and just like at a football match, and the atmosphere just washes over you, and it was just happy. Everyone happy, everyone loving what the DJ was doing, and it's a full house, but nobody's got the up with each other. You know what I mean?
Can be a long and lonely 7 hours. Worse so when it's raining. We've done it in the snow, and it goes with the territory.
So what's the worst night ever?
When nobody comes. You stood here and it's raining.
Or one person comes, but when you've just turned your back for 2 minutes.
Yeah. The second you divert your attention, something starts to occur. You can stand for hours with your eyes peeled, ready. The second something happens and you've got to get in there or do something else, events then will start to not go the way that you want them to.
People just appear, don't they, out of nowhere sometimes.
I'm reveling at the fact it's not raining.
And then there's pleasant nights in the summer when lovely people out here spoken, you can have a laugh and a joke with them. It's a pleasure, and we get in lovely people.
You understand the rules?
You've got to watch what happens over there.
I'm getting. Oh yeah, I think
there's bad.
I don't really understand the order of when you bring
It's the location, isn't it? It's sort of the edge of everything.
Yeah.
So it's, in some ways that's a good thing, but other ways it's a bad thing.
It's kind of eased off round here now. It's kind of moved more up there, hasn't it, and further down there. Not so much round here.
The police will have a purge on the working girls. We'll shift them from here, and where they go, they will eventually bring complaints. So move somewhere else or they'll come back here. But again, and I must say, it's not the girls that are the problem. It is their clients, for want of a better word, that can cause the problem, thinking that this is a waiting room for them while their favourite lady turns up.
We've had people, haven't we, like just walking in thinking it's a brothel
Thinking
before
it's
now.
knocking shop.
So what do you think's going to happen now then? There's obviously been talk about developments and whatnot.
Well, that'll happen. Oh,
Do you think it's definitely going to go ahead?
Yeah, it is. It's funded, it's approved, it's going. All is, you know, you said yourself, it's London and Continental are a bit cagey. Because London Continental haven't got a clue really, have they? It's not like we've agreed to sell to them. So it's down to Network Rail. And there's that inquiry thing that hasn't been published yet. Could take another month, could take another week, I don't know. But I mean, even when the inquiry is published, you've still got to go through all the planning, which in some circumstances can take years. I don't know, I'm not au fait with property, you know, crap like that. But Northern Hub will happen. The thing, the Mayfield thing, I think that'll happen as well, but Northern Hub's funded, Northern Hub, you know, it's pretty much signed, sealed, delivered.
And do you think you'll take the Star Garter as a concept somewhere else, or
Where?
I mean,
Where?
you're going to get another venue, or
Where?
is that the end of it then?
It's a music venue, that'll be the end of it. Where do you take it? If I took it somewhere, I'd want a car park again, and I'd want 2 floors. Show me somewhere in town that's got a car park and 2 floors.
The Star Garter is well known locally for hosting regular Smiths and Morrissey nights, and also indie discos, the most famous of which being Smile. I asked those who created Smile, and others involved and influenced by it, what they thought about the Star Garter. So why did you create it? Why did you say, right, I'm going to do this night?
Well, we had this previous night, the candy store at the Banshee, and it was all right, you know, reasonably successful, because it was right in the centre of town, and people who went to the old Banshee had sort of followed it there, and we just didn't want to stop doing something, so when we got thrown out of there we moved to the Star Garter.
What was different about the Smile?
Stop speaking.
Sorry,
Needs to say something.
I think part of it was that it was almost, to me anyway, I'm sorry, but I think it was almost like going to a party in a house and people just playing records that you liked. You know, it wasn't really, there was no real kind of, it wasn't trying to be anything special or like trying to set some sort of agenda. It was just like people playing some records they liked and records that people would dance to, because we all, well, Julie maybe not, but we wanted to dance basically, so we played records that people wanted to dance to.
And what sort of music did you play?
Kind of C86 type indie, wasn't it?
It was a bit of foundation in sort of 80s indie pop, and then
Yeah, and then more 60s stuff as we went along, I think.
It was very pop.
Yeah.
There wasn't much rocky stuff going on at all. And I suppose the indie stuff we played, it was generally quite underground, I suppose, wasn't it?
We didn't have a playlist. We never had a playlist. And you get these DJs these days, they'll prep the playlist, weeks in advance, and I find that just takes the fun out of DJ. And I just quite liked our freewheeling style, where we'd literally have as much as we could carry into the building and have round us, and then just have a few ideas of what we liked ourselves. Started with stuff we wanted to hear, and then like freewheel, with different requests, and and sometimes you change the tempo because you think, I've had a bit of enough of this indie, let's put a bit of 60s girl groups on, see how that'll go, and you played it much more free and loose, and I think that made for a better night. When sometimes you go into places and you know what the DJ is going to play, and we like to just play it where you just see where the night took us.
It's like a kind of crazy time warp in there, do you know what I mean? It was like full of like kind of girls like, look like they'd been beamed from 1966. There was more kind of white tights and, patent shoes in there than had been seen since Carnaby Street or whatever, I met a lot of people through going there. One of the reasons that I started started playing in a band again and doing a group even to this day is like because of going to the Star Garter. At the time, I was knocking around with a guy called Erland, a Norwegian guy, who actually ended up doing quite well, doing a band called the Kings of Convenience. But he used to live in Whalley Range, and he knew two people who were friends of his who were helping him produce a bit of music, Heather and Denis, who are a couple who are now married, and they were looking for a bass player for their group called Magic. And after a couple of meetings, mainly at Smile, we exchanged phone numbers, landline numbers, and I ended up joining the band. So, but then through there, like so many people, like people I've been in bands with, people I'm still going out with, drinking now, and we used to go with, it was me and my now wife Joanne and Lee, and that was our crew really. Because it was the cheapest place to go, and everybody seemed to be there, and it was full, like every week, like with good freaks. It had a good mix of people as well, especially when you were kind of young. It was nice to go somewhere where there wasn't just like a bunch of 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds, whatever on the dance floor. They had like kind of loads of old boys used to go down, like old soul boys, old rockers, and they used to be there every week as well.
Do you remember there was an article about it once in Time Out?
Yeah.
And at the end he said something like, with a bit more effort or a bit more publicity or something, this could be another Laurel Tree. The Laurel Tree, isn't it, in London, where Blow Up was.
Yeah.
And I just sort of thought, well, how would that help?
Yeah.
Would we get cooler people?
Yeah.
We couldn't get any more people because you couldn't fit any more people. And they're all enjoying themselves, they're all dancing, so...
I think the thing is as well, it was like, we just wanted to play the records that we liked, and so if you kind of created because I kind of don't think it was a proper sort of club, it was just somewhere we went, and if you create like a proper kind of club thing, which has got kind of almost like boundaries, like here's our club and here's the boundaries, then you kind of have to like sort of play to that boundaries, because people are coming expecting that.
I think it would be a shame if there wasn't that space for people who want to do something to be able to find somewhere without having to have any contacts or expertise. And if it's manky, then that's probably better, because that's why there was that space, that's why nobody else wanted it, because it was all run down and horrible. And it would be a shame if there wasn't anything of that left anymore.
With the so few spaces available for young people to come meet and be creative, share ideas, have a laugh, and you need those sort of black box spaces, like the Star Garter, which allow for that creativity to flourish. The amount of bands that have come out of that place is just fantastic, and you just need those sort of spaces, because the internet can only be a space for so much. You don't have that intimacy that you get in a black box above a bar, like in a Victorian building. You don't have that atmosphere. There's something about that place. It just allows you that creativity and freedom, and it's a space for people who haven't found their place in the main street to find their people, find their friends, find their clan. That's how I feel about that place, that I found my people there. And you do find it over your life, there's certain groups and stuff, but Star Garter for me was always about I found that place in Manchester which I could be me.
Manchester should be a city that produces culture, not just consumes it, and in order to produce it, it needs small venues and cheap spaces. But at the same time, buildings like the Twisted Wheel that's gone, the Hacienda that's gone, the Boardwalk that's gone, those kind of venues were also a way that the city defined itself. And they were places where people gravitated towards. You find your tribe in a venue. You're faced with a giant city, like, well, where do I find people who are like-minded? Where do I find my scene? you know, you can't choose your family, you can't choose your school, you can't choose your workplace necessarily, but you can choose where you go out in the evening, and you go out and you meet like-minded people. And where did our city gain some of its identity and its soul from? From music, particularly. And so we really need to look after that, because it links us to our past. You look at venues like Band on the Wall, for example, which is, you know, it's of a similar age to the Star and Garter. I mean, the Band on the Wall has survived, and I think it's important that we link back to those generations, because Manchester has always defined itself, you know, by buildings.
Well, when it comes to the redevelopment of that area and other areas in Manchester, I think stuff like that, it kind of has its time and its place, and I don't think you can keep hanging on to it like forever.
You know, it's mainly bands now rather than club nights where you dance. And I don't know, I mean, maybe I assume young people do go dancing somewhere, but I thought dancing was ace when I was like in my 20s. So, you know, I think it's quite nice if people could go dancing rather than, you know, you can't dance to a band, but you can't dance the same as to a club night. So
I don't really care.
So you just, it's in the past,
Yeah.
and you just get on with it, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's only a building.
Yeah.
yeah, but it's not just a building. They're replacing like a building that's got stuff in it with like office blocks or flats or something, and it's just people aren't going to go there to do stuff.
I don't know. I don't know if people are going there anyway. And I used to see a lot more like, concerts advertised there, and a lot more nights, and now it just seems to be. I cycle past because to work sometimes, and it just seems to be Smile and the Smiths nights that have any. If somebody told me apart from that it's shut down, I wouldn't have been like, surprised in this.
So maybe the world's just changed. That's just how it is.
I would have thought it's probably easier to do a night that's a mix that doesn't have a specific.
I think because you've got things outside the city. Remember, we went to something at what's it called in Withington?
Fuel.
We went to Fuel, and it was to see some bands, but you could have had a club night on there, and it had a real proper deal. I mean, the bands themselves put it on. They just passed a hat round. They didn't charge to get in. They passed a hat round, and it really felt like a proper young people doing stuff for themselves, which I think is quite nice. Really, it felt really different. Going to see, there was 4 bands on, 2 local Manchester bands and 2 had come from Glasgow, and it felt really, really different from going to see things in like the Eagle Inn and places like that, where it's generally people our age, whereas this was proper young people. This was like, you know, kids in their early 20s.
Well, I do think that young artistic people are quite resourceful. You know, I wouldn't say that the city's completely closed off. I think that, you know, if you go to somewhere like Islington Mill, for example, which is just outside the city centre, well, it's in Salford, isn't it? That is the kind of space that 20, 30 years ago gave birth to a whole load of creativity. I think Manchester has a tendency towards nostalgia, but I kind of think the British people do generally. You know, I think we're always looking back at a golden age, you know, and, you know, for some people that's the 1950s, you know, for some people it's the 1960s. I don't really hold with the idea of a golden age. I kind of think that you make your own culture, you make your own thing. I mean, when I was growing up, the golden age was the 60s. It was the generation before me said, you know, we had the Beatles, we had Carnaby Street, we had Woodstock, we had hippies, we had flower power. You'll never have anything as wonderful as that. And yet, you know, my generation, we managed to live through punk and rock against racism and post-punk and the rise of factory records and the rave scene. So you should never listen to old people saying that things will never be as good as they used to be. You should always look forward. And I think that Manchester has always had a radical spirit. It has always had a revolutionary spirit. And so although there are people who will always celebrate the past, which is good, I think there's always people that will find inspiration from the past and use that to create a future. That's how it should be.
Take me out.
So then, it's an end of an era for this building, but perhaps not the end of its life. Maybe just the end of a particular chapter with it.
Driving in your car, I never want to go home, because I haven't got one anymore. call. Take me out tonight, because I want to see people and I want to see light. Driving in your car, oh please don't drop me home, because it's not my home, it's their home and I'm welcome no more. And if a double